Hey, welcome back to my channel. Um, if you've been following, the main thing I've been doing so far has been reading tales from Norse myth. Um, yeah, tales from Norse myth. The last story we covered was of Thor of Asgard and all of his audacity. I want to firstly apologize because my voice may not be what it usually is. My sinus has been absolutely atrocious. I don't know if it's pollen or Sahara dust, but I have been going through it. That being said, somewhat different recording setup. One of my friends, she lent me her mic, and I have found some suitable recording software available for Android devices. So hopefully it sounds better regardless of what my voice sounds like. Please let me know in the comments if you can hear the difference. Hopefully it makes up for it. But I realize the mic's really sensitive, so you're probably gonna hear all the page turning significantly better. So the last time we were here, we read about Thor and all of his audacity. This time we're going to cover Freiya and the other gods. That's the section. I'm assuming it's going to cover mostly Freiya and her relationships or interactions with the other gods. So without further ado, here we go. Freiya came to Asgard from Vanaheim. Freiya came to Asgard from Vanaheim, and before long she was as beloved as she had been born of one of the Aesir. She married well and brought forth many fine children. She was known particularly for her fine feathered coat, which allowed her, and those she permitted to borrow it, to soar through the air as a hawk. Freyya's story touches on those of many of the other gods, and there are other myths and legends which must be recorded in order to understand how the golden age of Asgard became what it was, how evil entered, and how it eventually fell. There is Njord. I'm going to repeat it until I get it proper because you know me. The ADHD does ADHD things and the brain tries to, without properly analyzing the information. So I was very, very much so about to say Nimrod. Nimrod is not even the proper pantheon. Like, what are you doing, Johan? What are you doing? But I digress. Njord. Niord. Njord. There is Njord, who came with Freiya to bring summer. Once the seasons had fallen into place, and Tyr, the god of war, who showed bravery which far surpassed any shown by man or god in the heyday of Asgard. And in the stories that follow, we meet the elves and learn why they abandoned their happy existence deep in the bowels of the earth. For every tale leads towards a single inevitable event, Ragnarok, and it hovers at the edge of it all, just as it did in those early days of sunlight, when darkness had not yet touched the world of Asgard, and the gods lived life and the gods lived a life of splendor. Freiya and Odur. And Freiya next came nigh with golden tears, the loveliest goddess, she in heaven by all most honored after Freiya, Odin's wife. Freiya was the northern goddess of beauty and of love, a maiden so fair and so graceful that the gods honored her with the realm of Folkvang, and the great hall Sesri Min. Oh my god, that word, that's a word. Sesrimnir. Sesrimnir. A maiden so fair and graceful that the gods honored her with the realms of Forkvang and the great hall Sesrimnir, where she would in eternity surround herself with all of those who loved her. Like many Viking goddesses, Freiya was fierce and fiery, her cool demeanor masking a passion which lay burning beneath. She was clever and masterful in battle, and as Valfreya, she often led the Valkyries. Is that how they spell Valkyrie? Valkyrs. Valkyries. She often led the Valkyrs to battlefields where she would claim many of the slain heroes. She wore a simple flowing garment, held firmly in place on her torso and arms with the finest shining armor, a helmet and a shield. Slain heroes were taken to Folkvang, where they lived a life such as they had never experienced on earth. Their wives and lovers came to join them, and Freiya's reputation spread far and wide among the dead and the living. So luxurious was Folkvang. So luxurious was Folkvang, so exquisite were Freiya's charms, that lovers and their loved ones. Nope, that's a mistake. Let's start over. Slain heroes were taken to Folkvang, where they lived a life such as they had never experienced on earth. Their wives and lovers came to join them, and Freiya's reputation spread far and wide among the dead and the living. So luxurious was Folkvang, so exquisite were Freiya's charms, that lovers and wives of the slain would often take their own lives in order to meet with their loved ones sooner and to experience the splendor of her land. And so it was that Freiya, gold of hair and blue of eyes, came to be a symbol of love and courtship. And through that, the earth, which of course represents fecundity and new life. She married Odur, who symbolized the sun, and together they had two daughters, Hnos and Gresemi, beautiful maidens who had inherited their mother's beauty and their father's charisma and charm. But Odur was a man of wandering eyes. Udur was a man of wandering eyes, and one who appreciated the inner music of women. I'm making a lot of mistakes tonight. Let's start over. She married Odur, who symbolized the sun, and together they had 2 daughters, Nos and Dresemi, beautiful maidens who had inherited their mother's beauty and their father's charisma and charm. But Odur was a man of wandering eyes, and one who appreciated the inner music of women, and not just that of his wife. He grew tired of her song and her absorption with their daughters, and he grew restless and reckless. And after many months, and then years of growing weary of the smiling face of his lovely wife, he left Freiya and his daughters and set off on travels which would take him to the ends of the earth and around it. The original deadbeat dad. Freiya sank into despair that cast a shadow across the earth. The tears ran across cheeks that no longer bloomed, and as they touched the earth, they became golden nuggets, sinking deep into the soil. Even the rocks were softened by her tears, which flowed without ceasing as she made her decision. And it was decided by Freiya that she would not live without Odur. As well as being the symbol of the summer sun, Odur represented passion and ardor. Without him, Freiya could no longer find it in her heart to bring love and affection to those around her, and she could not fulfill her duties as goddess of love. It was decided that she should travel to find him. So across the lands she passed, leaving behind her tears, which glistened and hardened into the purest gold. She traveled far and wide, and took on disguises as she moved, careful to leave no clue as to her identity, in the event that he should hear word of her coming and not wish to see her. She was known as Sir and Skjalf, Thrung and Horn, and it was not until she reached the deepest south, where summers clung to the land, that she found Odur. Her husband lay under the myrtle trees that lined the sunny banks of a stream. Reunited, they lay together there, warm in one another's arms, and dusted with the glow of true love. That is not true love. That's some fairy tale bullshit. That is not true love. Her husband lay under the myrtle trees that lined the sunny banks of a stream. Reunited, they lay together, warm in one another's arms, and dusted with the glow of true love. And as the passion drew color into the cheeks of his wife, Odur knew he had to look no further to find his heart's content. The trees above them then cast their scent across this happy couple, endowing them with good fortune. They rose together, and then Odur and Freiya made their way towards their home and their exquisite daughters. As they walked, the earth rose up to meet them, casting bouquets of fragrant flowers in their path, drawing down the boughs of the flowering trees so they kissed the heads of the lovers. The air was as filled with the rosy glow of their love, and everything living joined a chorus of cheers which followed their path. Spring and summer warmed the frozen land, which had stood desolate and empty when Odur left. The loveliest of the new flowers which bloomed were named Freiya's hair, and Freiya's ideal. And to this day, brides wear myrtle in their hair, a symbol of good fortune and true love. That's wild, fam. I don't understand how that's a story of true love. They literally said that Odur, his heart, it burns with passion for the music of other women. What you talking about, what you talking about, Willis? What do you mean true love? Odur was the original Hona man. Man literally was like, I tired of my wife and my beautiful daughters, you know. I was something else. And Odur absconded himself and literally went to the edges of the earth. And she was so worried that he would not want to see her that she disguised herself. What kind of toxic love story is this, fam? But yeah. The next story is Uttar and Angantyr. 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 Uttar and Angantyr. The northern people, I'm going to stop reading the poems because I realize some of them don't even rhyme, and I feel like I'm butchering them because they might have to be read at a certain cadence, and I just don't know that cadence because I'm not Norse. If it wasn't obvious from the accent that has jumped out there from time and time again. Your boy from the Caribbean. Norse nothing. Uttar and Angantyr. Uttar and Angantyr. 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 These names, son, these names. The northern people were wont to invoke Freiya not only for success in love, prosperity, and increase, but also at times for aid and protection. This she vouchsafed to all who served her truly, as appeared in the story of Uttar and Angantyr. 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 That is such a name. This she vouchsafed to all who served her truly, as appeared in the story of Uttar and Angantyr, two men who, after disputing for some time concerning their rights to a certain piece of property, laid their quarrel before the thing. That popular assembly decreed that the man who could prove that he had the longest line of noble ancestors should be declared the winner, and a special day was appointed to investigate the genealogy of each claimant. Uttar, unable to remember the names of more than a few of his progenitors, offered sacrifices to Freiya, entreating her aid. The goddess graciously heard his prayer, and appearing before him, she changed him into a boar and rode off upon his back to the dwelling of the sorceress Hyndla. 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 A most renowned witch. By threats and entreaties, Freiya compelled the old woman to trace Uttar's genealogy back to Odin. Why are all these gods and goddesses trifling and shifty? All of them, literally all of them. And to name every individual to return with a synopsis of his achievements. Then, fearing lest her votary's memory should be unable to retain so many details, Freiya further compelled Hyndla to brew a potion of remembrance, which she gave him to drink. Thus prepared, Ottar presented himself before the thing on the appointed day, and glibly recited his pedigree. He named so many more ancestors than Angantyr could recollect, and he was easily awarded the possession of the property he coveted. That's that story. That's wild, because they literally use obia and lies, because how could you come back to Odin? The next story will be of Frey. Frey, not to be confused with Freya, was male. Frey, or Fro, as he was called in Germany, was the son of Njord and Nerthias, or of Njord and Skadi, and was born in Vanaheim. He therefore belonged to the race of the Vanas, the divinities of water and air, but was warmly welcomed in Asgard when he came thither as hostage with his father. And it was customary among the northern nations to bestow some valuable gift upon a child when he cut his first tooth. The Aesir gave the infant Frey the beautiful realm of Alfenheim, or Fairyland, the home of the Light Elves. Frey. Here, Frey, the god of the golden sunshine. Here, Frey, the god of the golden sunshine and the warm summer showers, took upon his abode, charmed with the society of elves and fairies, who implicitly obeyed his every order, and at a sign from him flitted to and fro, doing all the good in their power, for they were permanently beneficent spirits. That whole thing is one sentence. That whole thing is one sentence. So I just wanted to let you know why I get tripped up so often. Because these stories are old. And because they are old and they are translated, they are not structured the way average sentences would be structured. There are so many run-along sentences that it throws me off. It really does. So that was an entire paragraph, but it was one sentence. But I digress. Frey also received from the gods a marvelous sword, an emblem of the sunbeams, which had the power of fighting successfully. Stop. Rewind. Frey also received from the gods of a marvelous sword, an emblem of the sunbeams, which had the power of fighting successfully, and of its own accord, as soon as it was drawn from its sheath. Frey wielded this principally against the frost giants, whom he hated most as much as did Thor, and because he carried this glittering weapon, he has sometimes been confounded with the sword god Tyr or Saxnot. The dwarves from Svartalfaheim gave Frey the golden bristled bow, Gulinbrsti, the personification of the sun. The radiant bristles of this animal were considered symbolical either of the solar rays of the golden grain, which as his bidding waved over the harvest fields of Midgard, or of agriculture. For the boar, by tearing up the ground with its sharp tusk, was supposed to have first taught mankind how to plow. Haha, giggity. Frey sometimes rode astride of his marvelous boar, whose speed was very great, and at other times harnessed him to his golden chariot, which was said to contain the fruits and flowers which he lavishly scattered abroad over the face of the earth. Frey was, moreover, the proud possessor not only of the dauntless steed, okay, so I'm gonna spell this out for you. BLODUG hyphen HOFI Blodoghofi 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 Blodoghofi. I swear these names, fam. Blodoghofi, which would dash through the fire and water as his command, but also of the magic ship. Skibbity-dibby-doo-bye. The magic ship Skidbladnir. Skidbladnir. No, yeah, Skidbladnir. So he has Blodoghofi and Skidbladnir, a personification of the clouds. This vessel, sailing over land and sea, was always wafted along by favorable winds, and was so elastic that while it could assume large enough proportions to carry the gods, their steeds, and all their equipment, it could also be folded up like a napkin and thrust into a pocket. It is related in one of the lays of the Edda that Frey once ventured to Odin's. It is related in one of the lays of the Edda that Frey once ventured to ascend Odin's throne. HLIDSKIALF. That's the name of the throne. Klid, Skjalf, Klid, Skjalf. I don't think my tongue was my tongue was made to say these words. Klid, Skjalf, Klid, Skjalf. From which exalted seat his gaze ranged. It is related in one of the lays of the Edda that Frey once ventured to ascend Odin's throne, Hlidskjalf, from which exalted seat his gaze ranged over the wide earth. Looking towards the frozen north, he saw a beautiful young maiden enter the house of the frost giant Gymir, and as she raised her hand to lift the latch, her radiant beauty illuminated sea and sky. A moment later, this lovely creature, whose name was Gerda, and who is considered as a personification of the flashing northern lights, vanished within her father's house, and Frey pensively wended his way back to Alfheim, his heart oppressed with longing to make this fair maiden his wife. Being deeply in love, he was melancholy and absent-minded in the extreme, and began to behave so strangely that his father Njord became greatly alarmed about his health, and bade his favourite servant Skirnir discover the cause of his sudden change. After much persuasion, Skirnir finally won from Frey an account of his accent of Hlidskjalf and of the fair vision he had seen. He confessed his love and also his utter despair, for as Gurra was the daughter of Gymir, and Angurboda, and a relative of the murdered giant Thiassi. He feared she would never view his suit with favour. Skirnir, however, replied consolingly that he could see no reason why his master should take a despondent view of the case, and he offered to go and woo the maiden in his name, providing Freyr would lend him his steed for the journey, and give him his glittering sword for reward. Again, that's another one of those run-along sentences. That's a whole paragraph, but that is one sentence. And I'm fighting. I'm fighting for my life over here. I cannot. Overjoyed at the prospect of winning the beautiful Gerda, Frey willingly handed over Skirnir the flashing sword and gave him permission to use the horse, but he quickly relapsed into his state of revere, which had become usual with him since falling in love. And thus he did not notice that Skirnir was still hovering near him. I'm going to start that over. But he quickly relapsed into a state of revere, which had become usual with him since falling in love, and thus he did not notice that Skirnir was still hovering near him, nor did he perceive him cunningly steal the reflection of his face from the surface of the brook, near which he was seated, and imprison it in his drinking horn, with intent to pour it out in Gerda's cup, and by its beauty win the heart of the giantess for the Lord, for whom he was about to go a-wooing. Provided with this portrait, with 11 golden apples, and with the magic ring Draupnir, Skirnir now rode off to Jotunheim to fulfill his embassy. As he came near to Gymir's dwelling, he heard the loud and persistent howling of his watchdogs, which were personifications of the wintry winds. A shepherd, guarding his flock in the vicinity, told him, in answer to his inquiry, that it would be impossible to approach the house on account of the flaming barrier which surrounded it. But Skirnir, knowing that Bloodog Hofi would dash through any fire, merely set spurs to his steed, and riding up unscathed to the giant's door, was soon ushered into the presence of the lovely Gerda. To induce the fair maiden to lend a favourable ear to his master's proposal, Skirnir showed her the stolen portrait, and proffered the golden apples and magic ring, which, however, she haughtily refused to accept, declaring that her father had gold enough to spare. Indignant at her scorn, Skirnir now threatened to decapitate her with his magic sword, but as he did not in the least frighten the maiden, and she calmly defied him, he had recourse to magic arts. Cutting runes in his stick, he told her that unless she yielded her, the spell was ended. She would be condemned either to eternal celibacy or to marry some aged frost giant whom she could never love. What in the world is wrong with these people? Hey, marry my lord, I will decapitate you. Like, what the actual hell? That's crazy. That is so crazy. Terrified into submission by the frightful description of her childless future, in case she persisted in her refusal, Gerda finally consented to become Frey's wife and dismissed Skirnir, promising to meet her future spouse on the 9th night in the land of Buri, the Green Grove, where she would dispel his sadness and make him happy. Delighted with his success, Skirnir hurried back to Alfheim, where Frey came eagerly to learn the result of his journey. When he learned that Gerda had consented to become his wife, his face grew radiant with joy. But Skirnir also informed him that he would have to wait 9 nights ere he could behold his promised bride. He turned sadly away, declaring the time would appear interminable. In spite of his lover-like despondency, however, the time of waiting came to an end, and Frey joyfully hastened to the Green Grove, where, true to her appointment, he found Gerda, and she became his happy wife, and proudly sat upon his throne beside him. According to some of the mythologists, Gerda is not a personification of the aurora borealis, but of the earth, which, hard, cold, and unyielding, resists the spring god's proffers of adornment and fruitfulness. Defies the flashing sunbeams, and only consents to receive his kiss when it learns that it will else be doomed to perpetual barrenness, or given over entirely into the power of the giants. The 9 nights of waiting are typical of the 9 winter months, at the end of which the earth becomes the bride of the sun, and the groves where the trees are budding forth into... I have descended into horrible cadence with this reading, but it's just structured so weirdly. It's just structured so weirdly. I know it's partially my fault too, but damn. According to some mythologists, Gerda was not the personification of the aurora borealis, but of the earth, which, hard, cold, and unyielding, resists the spring god's proffers of adornment and fruitfulness, defies the flashing sunbeams, and only consents to receive his kiss when it learns that all it will else be doomed to perpetual barrenness, or given over entirely into the power of the giants. The 9 nights of waiting are typical of the 9 winter months, at the end of which the earth becomes the bride of the sun, in the groves where the trees are budding forth unto leaf and blossom. Frey and Gerda, we are told, became the parents of a son called Fjolnir, whose birth consoled Gerda for her loss of her brother Bailey. The latter had attacked Frey and had been slain by him, although the sun god, deprived of his matchless sword, had been obligated to defend himself with a stag horn, which he hastily snatched from the wall of his dwelling. Besides the faithful Skirnir, Frey had 2 other attendants, a married couple, Begvir and Bela, the personifications of Mill Refuse and Manio, which two ingredients being used in agriculture for fertilizing purposes were therefore considered Frey's faithful servants in spite of their unpleasant qualities. I assumed incorrectly. This was literally Frey and the other gods. None of these Freiya, because the first one was Freiya and Odur. Then we had Uttar and Agnantir. Then we have Frey. Frey Wildland though. And Skirnir is an absolute mad lad. Marry my lord or I'll go swing. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. I can feel my throat trying to kill me. So I will cover one more and call it a night. The next story is of Njord. When the war between the Aesir and the Vanir was concluded and hostages were taken by each side, Njord and his children, Freiya and Frey, went to live in Asgard. When Njord was made a ruler of the winds and of the sea near the shore, and he was presented with a lush palace on the shores of Asgard, which he called Noatun. Here he took up the role of protecting the Aesir from Aegir, the god of the sea, who had a fiery temper, that's ironic, and who could, at a moment's notice, send waves crashing upon the unprotected shores of Asgard. Njord was a popular god, and he was as handsome as his children. On his head he wore a circle of shells, and his dress was adorned with fresh, lustrous green seaweed. Njord was the very embodiment of summer, and each spring he was called upon to still the winds and move the clouds so that the sun's bright rays could touch the earth and encourage all to grow. Njord had been married to Mother Earth, Nithas, but she had been forced to stay behind when Njord was summoned to become a hostage for the Vanir. So he lived alone in Njord, an arrangement which he did not mind in the least. For from Noatun, he could breathe in the fresh salt air and revel in the flight of the gulls and other seabirds that made their home on the banks. The crashing waves lulled him into a state of serenity, and with the gentle seals, he basked in the sunlight of his new home. All was well until Skadi arrived. Skadi had chosen Njord as her husband because of his clean feet, and he had grudgingly agreed to marry her. There could not have been two more different beings, for Skadi was now goddess of winter, and she dressed in pure white, glittering garments, embroidered with icicles and the fur of a white wolf. Skadi was beautiful, and her skin was like alabaster. Her eyes were stormy and told of deep passion which burned within her. Njord was happy to take her as his wife, although he longed for the days of solitude that his unmarried days had accorded. And so it was that Skadi moved her belongings to Noatun and settled in there. The first night spoke of the nights to come, for from the first instant Skadi was unable to sleep a wink. The sounds of the waves echoed deep in her head, and the cries of the gulls wakened her every time she drifted into the first ebbs of sleep. So Skadi announced to all that she could not live with Njord in Nortun. He would have to return with her to Thrymheim, Trimheim. Njord was deeply saddened by this arrangement, for the sea was a part of him, food for his soul. He finally agreed to travel with Skadi to Thrymheim, where he would live with her for 9 out of every 12 months. It was many days before Skadi and Njord reached her home, high in the frozen mountains, where frost clung to every surface, and the air was filled with the vapor of their breath. The wind howled through the trees, sending showers of ice to the ground below, where it cracked and broke into tiny glittering shards. The waterfalls roared in the background, sending up a spray that glistened in the sunlight. At night, the wolves joined the fracas, howling at the icy moon. Njord was quite unable to sleep even one wink, so an agreement was finally forged between the two. For 9 months of the year, Njord would make his home with Skadi in the Kingdom of Winter. For the other 3 months, they would return to Nortun, where he would invoke summer for everyone in Asgard. This arrangement worked well for many years, but both Njord and Skadi felt saddened by having to vacate their homes for months on end. Finally, despite their affection for one another, it was decided that they should part. Skadi threw herself into hunting, honing her skills so that she became the finest marksman in the land. She married the historical Odin, and she bore him a son called Seiming. Eventually, she married Ulir, the god of winter and the perfect companion for the frigid goddess. Njord returned to his palace by the sea and frolicked there with the seals who basked on the summer sun. I am going to end it there. My voice is literally giving out on me. I think I should have used my symptoms as a sign for not being able to really make it, but I really want to do this. I really want to post these videos, and I really want to get practice speaking aloud. I think it's also going to help with the whole ADHD thing, where we tend to speak before fully processing the thing. So I'm hoping that it helps. But this has been eye-opening. I didn't even realize that so many things were the personification of so many other things. I'm enjoying this. I am enjoying this book. It's hilarious. I'm about halfway through. So I'm gonna call it a night. I really hope that this was relaxing for you, or that you can, use it as background noise, drown out the noise of the day, or use it to sleep, or you just wanted to hear me make hundreds of mistakes and butcher pronouncing the words and names of these Norse pantheons. Because believe me, every time I made a mistake, I had to withhold the urge to laugh at myself, because we're not doing that. we are not doing that. So again, I hope you enjoyed. Good morning, good day, good night, wherever you may be. I hope you have a great day, or evening, or night, and sweet dreams. I will see you in the next one.